Well, Stacey Carr, welcome to the LYHL podcast. It's such a privilege to have you here. So I'm sitting in Los Angeles in my home, and you are across the Atlantic in the
Uh-huh.
UK.
Yep.
And so thanks for taking the time to be here. Um, always enjoy these conversations, and I know you're going to offer such valuable insight. We
Mm.
have very different career paths, so I'm even just interested, in learning, just hearing you
Yeah.
describe what you do, and then just exploring, just how we live a healthy life. We've known each other.
Probably, I mean, definitely over a decade for
You
sure.
think, yeah,
Probably,
yeah,
probably in the 15 range, maybe.
yeah,
In the
yeah.
10 to 15 year range, I
I
think.
think so. I think so.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of adjacency, I think, in
that's right.
like in peer groups. So I know enough of you just to have like a strong affinity for you.
Likewise.
And I know we don't, yeah, like we're not like deep in the circles, but yeah, I have a really strong affinity for you, and like all the interactions I have with you have left me feeling better. So I'm
Oh,
excited for today. And I do recall our last, what I remember is our last interaction, because we'd had a large gap
a
of
large
not seeing
gap.
each other. And then it was like a day retreat,
Yes.
and we were in a poetry
Yes.
workshop.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really explored poetry in a group before. I don't remember if you had.
I don't, I don't think I had taken a creative writing class, I want to
Okay.
say in college.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think I certainly hadn't touched poetry in years. And so I
Yeah.
was excited to
Yeah.
try it. And yeah, we were both newbies and we both just like were into it. And
We went
I know
for it. Yeah.
Danielle was a great
Oh
teacher.
my
It was
goodness. Oh my
it
goodness.
was
Yeah.
fun, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
back in 2019.
I know. Remember those
Oh, wait.
days?
Was it 2018? No.
And I would say
It was
2019.
2019.
I
It was
think it's
2019.
2019.
Yeah. It was not too
Yeah,
far before the pandemic. Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
And I remember, but was there like overlap? Am I misremembering this, that we both wrote about having green eyes?
But maybe we did. We definitely talked about it. We
Yeah, I
definitely
wrote
talked
about it,
about
and
it.
then I don't, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
something came up in one of our things about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember the context, but I do remember that coming up as a similarity because it's unique, right? That's what I
Yeah,
heard.
it's
I heard
a,
that's
yeah,
not a ton of
percentage
people
wise, yeah,
have.
it's,
Yeah,
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 I can't throw out any stats there, but
yeah. Me
yeah,
neither.
we're a rare breed, and so I'm remembering that bonding over
Yes,
that,
yes.
and poetry just has like it's magical, I guess. It's like a key, like to a deeper. I think we both wrote about childhood
I think we did too. We sure
experiences.
did. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't
Hmm.
remember what the prompt was or anything, but I remember that being just a very moving time, and I remember enjoying. I think we both shared
I
the
think we both did
invitation to
too,
it.
and it
Yeah,
was just like, hey, it's been a long time since I've seen you. This was really fun thing to do together,
I
for
know.
sure.
And so here we are. So our math, we're working on it. So 4 years later.
4 years later, yeah.
Okay, and so I'm hoping for a similar, like, ooh, who knows what's going to happen, right? We didn't know
Mhm.
what was going to happen in that workshop. I for sure did not. And then, uh, yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time
My
to be
pleasure.
here. Let's
Thanks for
get into
inviting
it.
me.
Yes. No. Thanks. Absolutely. So question number one: how would you describe your work and vocation?
How would I describe my work and vocation? So I think they go hand in hand, but
Hmm.
my work right now, I've always prior to moving to the UK, I have been a TV development executive, primarily in the unscripted TV space. I'm still an exec, but I am also a consultant and I work more independently now. And
Hmm.
so right now I work a lot with production companies, also individuals, creatives, talents, brands who are wanting to produce content. And so I will work with individuals on a one-on-one basis, helping them to prepare their projects for the pitch and partnership phase. But
Hmm.
I will also come on as an exec for hire for short-term contracts for different companies that want to start a new division or want to work on a few projects to get some new divisions going. I've worked a bit like in the kids and the Gen Z space. I
Mm-hmm.
also work with production companies in the UK that want to pitch projects to the US, and I help them
Oh,
hone their development slates
yeah.
and get
Oh,
their
I love that
sensibility
crossover. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
so I'm
got
wanting
business, you
to
got
do more
business
of that.
savvy. Yeah.
I'm
Uh-huh.
trying. And then,
Yeah.
one thing that I'm very, very passionate about is access and professional development,
Okay.
particularly for up and coming creatives in the entertainment industry, and also underrepresented people in the industry. So really
Mm-hmm.
helping with programs and offerings that help people navigate the industry and find their
Mm-hmm.
way in and give them
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. So I've been involved with quite a few diversity and inclusion efforts here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on this really cool writers program called Creative Corridor. That was a transatlantic writers program for writers of color who were based in the US and the UK,
Ooh.
and just spoken on a variety of different panels,
Mm-hmm.
helping people, learn how to network, how to pitch, how to develop, you know, a variety of different sort of professional development topics. And so that's just one of my passions. So I do develop content, but I am an
Mm-hmm.
advocate for access and
Mm.
inclusion and professional development in the entertainment industry. And yeah, I just want to provide people with opportunities.
Whoa, cool. Um, okay. There's a lot there.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I would love a little bit, if you don't mind, whatever you feel comfortable sharing about like your origin story into like this line of work. Like what was the
Sure.
draw? It sounds like this is maybe what's sustaining you. Is that like how did you get, but maybe I'm jumping into that. Like the advocacy is maybe to me, I'm assuming this sounds very rewarding. This sounds very
Hmm.
important. There's passion in that. Like how did you get here? Like to me, so right, healthcare provider, and
Hmm.
because of that in education, or that's
Hmm.
my path into, working in a university. So entertainment is a bit nebulous to me. And I had a prior partner that was in music industry. So I have adjacency to that and understanding of that. But like TV, film
Yeah.
is like it's like a Pandora mystery box to me.
of of how you get into that. Great. Yeah, so I was always interested and intrigued by the entertainment industry just from
Mm,
from a young kid. I think 12 is the age that I could really remember, but
mm,
I grew up watching Kids Incorporated, Mickey Mouse Club. Our
mm-hmm,
family, we watched award shows on TV. I always really loved to watch award shows and music performances on TV,
mm-hmm,
and I always was just intrigued by television and movies and acting and just that whole world. And I grew up in Reno, Nevada, which is a small town, even
mm-hmm.
smaller than it was even smaller back then than it is
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm,
there wasn't really a big opportunity to penetrate those fields. And so for me, I wanted to go to college in LA so that I could be
mm,
close to the industry upon
mm-hmm,
graduating and try to pursue the industry. And so initially, I was interested in acting and wanted to get into acting primarily because I didn't have a larger view of what the entertainment industry was. And that's kind of the
mm-hmm,
forward facing thing that you see, and you're like, oh
mm-hmm.
no, there's this whole
Yeah.
world. You can do all these other things. And I would dabble, I did some theater classes and eventually just started putting on my own shows and stuff on campus and things like that. When I first graduated, I actually started in the nonprofit world for a little bit, but I ended up taking a careers seminar about how to get into the industry and work your way up. This was back in 2007 because I knew
Mm,
I would make the jump at some point, and this was just the time when I had decided to do it.
mm-hmm,
I had some friends who worked in the entertainment business who were like sending me job lists and things like that. But after I went to that career seminar, I really started to learn about the industry
mm-hmm,
and, finally found my way into my first job as an assistant for a director at the time. And I
mm-hmm,
just started to, it's kind of one of those industries where you work your way up. You start as an
mm-hmm,
assistant, you start networking, you get involved with different networking organizations. You network with your fellow assistants who are on the agency side, the networking side, or on the network side, the production company side, production crew, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be. And you really essentially teach yourself how to work in the industry. And so
Mm-hmm.
I found a path on the sort of executive track fairly early. And I felt like that suited me as a professional person. I'm kind of a business person slash creative
Mm-hmm.
person. Some people are
Mm-hmm.
like straight creative. Some people are like multi-hyphenate,
Mm-hmm.
some people
Mm-hmm.
are all those things. And I'm like, I like this side of things. And so I started to work my way up, and, I spent several years as an assistant. I made, the jump out of that role about 8, 9 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then have been working my way up as an executive, working at companies like Cartoon Network, Oprah Winfrey
Mm-hmm.
Network. I spent a
Mm-hmm.
number of years there. Endemol Shine North America. I worked at Nickelodeon. And then it was about 6 years ago, I started feeling like, oh, maybe LA is not forever.
Mm.
Maybe I want to move to London. And so there was a long journey to
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how to make that work. But
Mm-hmm.
essentially, by the time I was ready to make that jump, I felt like I had, done the corporate thing and, done that thing for a while and was jaded by some of it, but was
Mm-hmm.
really just looking to get into something more flexible so that I could
Mm-hmm.
explore this move abroad. But I was
Mm-hmm.
also just in at that time of my life, like I think so many of my colleagues were, as well as so many people in the industry and all industries. I think during the pandemic was like, what else can
Yes.
I be
Yeah.
doing?
You're
You
right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
what else do I
Mm-hmm.
care about?
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I personally always loved helping people and talking to people about the industry. And I've always been one to say yes to speaking on a panel or to accept a LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
request of someone wanting to pick my brain, so to speak, or take me to
Mm-hmm.
coffee. And, coming to the UK and learning a new landscape, for me, it was about, okay, I've achieved some things in my career. I do want to achieve more, but really, I love helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of people here who need to feel empowered. And I have an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to be a part of that. So for me, it's not just
Mm-hmm.
about developing content forever and ever and ever. I
Mm-hmm.
do still do that. I do enjoy that. I do still enjoy content and being an entertainment professional, but I
Mm-hmm.
really want to help other people with their
Mm-hmm.
projects and with their opportunities. And so it's really just a broadening of what I was already doing and a pivoting
Yeah.
into more impactful work. But just to go back for a second, I know that was a long answer, but just I think my heart of being in the entertainment industry was always about mega impact. Like the media
Mm-hmm.
is such a powerful way to help people
Mm-hmm.
feel empowered, to help people feel seen and represented, to even the unscripted genre in particular. It's everyday people
Mm-hmm.
stories, everyday people being featured in this format or that
Mm-hmm.
format and having the opportunity to see
Mm-hmm.
themselves on screen. And so I always wanted to work for impactful brands. I worked in the kid space a bunch. Oprah Winfrey Network was one of my dream
Mm-hmm.
companies. So I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to do impactful work in the industry. So
Mm-hmm.
I've always been doing that. It just looks a bit different now.
Yeah. We talked before we started that so I don't know how I'm presenting to people today because I am fairly tired. I just finished my like semester yesterday and had so full, not full disclosure, but a little disclosure of feeling overwhelmed. So I'm like getting
Semi
teary-eyed.
disclosure.
I'm very I'm very tender right now. So which I don't mind that you're right to display that, but just disclosure for
Yeah.
somebody that's like, what's happening to her? Like that to me, I just feel so happy for you. And I feel
You.
so, yeah. And if okay. I feel so happy for you. I feel so happy for the world because this podcast, right, is about living your healthiest life. And
Yes.
so I just knew, right, just knowing how you're living your life, even from like afar, I'm just like, right. And then just the little touch points and how we rub up against each other. And so, yeah, I'm just feeling, grateful for you and just like envisioning all your impact, all the people that you're helping now,
Mm.
how you're shaping the industry, and the industry, right? So the industry, which I said that around some PT people, and I said the industry, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Guys, this is LA. It's clearly,
Right.
it's not. We're not talking about healthcare. This is like." This is like media. This is like we're creating things that the whole world like takes in. Hollywood
Right.
has so much impact for just how people view themselves, how they view each other, the dynamic, how what they feel is possible in the world, what they think life is about,
Mm-hmm.
yada yada yada. We can go, this is Seinfeld, I guess, right? So there's just an example of the impact of like media in terms of just even shaping our language. And so I know that just like your work right now it's not just like the temporal impact isn't just in the here and now, which is very meaningful, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
very meaningful to those people in that moment that you sit and you're volunteering and doing that mentorship or connecting with somebody on LinkedIn, that you're taking that time is so rare. And so many people get really uppity, right? When they advance, like,
Mm-hmm.
because what there's that saying, I don't know the genesis of it, right, is that like power doesn't like shape who you are, it reveals who you are. And
Mm.
so like as as an executive, right, and having not just been insular in one company, you've by being in various companies, you've felt a lot of energies, been in a
Yeah.
lot of rooms, met different people.
Yes.
You have so much to offer by
Mm.
that. And you didn't come from a place, well, oh, my parent, there wasn't like a nepotism that
Right.
got you there. There wasn't like, well, somebody just, I had the lane and I stayed in the lane. Like you created the lane. The other thing that's coming to mind to me is just like, wow, like anybody that wants to be in the entertainment industry, um, you really have to have a long view of what you're doing.
Yeah. That's a really
And we
good point.
and we've seen that, right? Having lived in LA, we've seen a lot of people come and go, and there's no like shade or anything on them,
That's right.
but
That's
there
right.
but there definitely is a percentage of people that don't realize that aren't committed to
Mm-hmm.
that want the break to be right away, that thinks that that's how you get there is just by, well, I'm great and people will see that and done,
Right.
versus
It's
no,
a
I'm
long game.
gonna, yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna, get a toenail in the door, and then my toe, and then, and then just, it might feel like scraping, and just like, I'm sure
Yeah.
you had to make so many sacrifices in
Mm-hmm.
living in LA, in terms of like where you lived, in terms of entertainment, like going out, like what you did, trips. I'm sure there was so much sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
that led to where you are. And I don't know if any of that you want to comment about, but that's, as I reflect on what you said, those are things coming to mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. It's really interesting to hear your reflection. Yeah, it's so funny because I haven't thought about LA in a while, to be honest, because I've been here almost 2 years now, and I very much felt the chapter closing,
Mm-hmm.
and complete, honestly. And I could be called back there someday somehow, and I would be open to that, I guess. But in my mind, there's nothing calling me back anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, wow, that was a major chunk of my life, and I got so much from it, and so many of my
Mm-hmm.
dreams came true, and I met some incredible people, and I really got, I think, as much as I could have from it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think because it still is the entertainment capital of the world and is a mecca in some sense, I do have the passion and the curiosity to explore how that experience can be impactful where I'm at here, and that's been a
Mm-hmm.
part of my sort of
Mm-hmm.
tagline is, how can I activate my experience and contacts and even my work ethic the ways that we do things to be impactful here. And it's just also interesting to just talk to people about the ways in which the markets are different and the
Mm-hmm.
things that they can learn
Mm-hmm.
from each other and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that living in LA is certainly no joke. And
Mm-hmm.
you got to be strong to get through it, and it's not for everybody. And like you said, no shade, there's no problems, but I think people probably know when it's time to go, or
Mm-hmm.
when it's time to
Mm-hmm.
keep going. I have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
friends who are still there and still going for it, and it's great to cheer them on.
Yeah. 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 1,000%. Coming to mind again is just, yeah, because I went like LA, and you've kind of brought back and remind me of this, just what you're doing, like a broader perspective of decentralizing power, which is, that's kind of, just piquing my interest, and even thinking about that in terms of health, right? That, like, on a larger scale, like, oh, that's probably not really healthy if, like, the more, what would be an appropriate word? Unilateral is a word that's coming to mind. I don't know if that's right, but and I'm just trying to not say diversity, right? Like, the more just like insular a perspective is, and that's going to be insular geographically, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
you're not just helping people of color, but you're also, here's like European influence, European, based on my limited understanding, right? Because Americans, right, or folks from the US, right,
mm-hmm,
are
mm-hmm.
not particularly educated in world news and events and history. But my perspective is that Europe gets a lot more immigrants, like, in I want to say in more real time. Like, I think the US has kind of pulled
Mm-hmm,
back. I don't know if anything this is verified, but this is just kind of my thought about
mm-hmm.
that people of color in the UK and London are going to have a different experience, different than people living in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems really, yeah, that's just striking to me, of like, by positioning yourself there, how you're doing that. And the other thing, so I keep adding things on when I'm talking a lot, but I'm just really enjoying and processing your
Mm-hmm.
sharing, is the other thing that you said a couple times, in this dovetails with that, is you're not going at it like cerebrally, as like, how can I, this is not what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing you say like, well,
Right.
intellectually, I think the way to do the best diversity is, but you're just living your story. And as you're doing your experience, you're just like, how can I do this the best way? And
Yes.
and to you, it sounds like the best way is inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you mention the word calling a few times. Is there anything you'd want to share about that as you explore, just as you go through life? Because you said, oh, maybe I'll get called back, or maybe so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So a little bit of context, and I'm sure you've shared about this before, but you and I initially met in a faith community,
Mm-hmm.
Mosaic Church, back in the day, and we've
Mm-hmm.
both been a part of different faith communities that have overlap with different people. And so
Yep.
I am a Christian and someone that prays and ask God, what he's doing in my life and
Mm-hmm.
what the heck is going on. And
Yeah, that's a good prayer, right? Just like, and then just receive.
and
Yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah.
And sometimes you feel like you know there's certain things, and it could be like interests that are maybe pulling you to something, and then sometimes you feel like, okay, this thing is a bit outside of myself, but it resonates with me, but I don't think I'd
Mm-hmm.
really go for it on my own. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when I feel like God is calling me to something. And honestly, for me, I felt called to London by God. And
Mm-hmm.
because I think that was probably, even though it was something I dreamt about and probably joked about that somehow I could end up there, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I myself would have actually
Mm.
went on that journey of trying to figure
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah.
And so, because I went on that journey and it took such a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
when I ultimately did go for it, it's been so amazingly and miraculously successful
Mm-hmm.
that I have to think that, okay, there's a reason why this is happening. And let's see,
Mm-hmm.
exactly, what it is. And,
Mm-hmm.
again, I mentioned that when I left LA, I'd been there for 21 years. I first went there in 2000 to go to college, and
The
I left in
baby. Yeah.
2021. Exactly. Yeah. I spent my whole adult life there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long time to be in a place.
It
So many people out
is.
here
Yeah.
always ask me, like, why'd you leave? And I was like, 21 years is a long time. Like, I did my time.
Yeah.
And, like, I
Yeah.
experienced it. There's
Yeah.
no stone left unturned, or whatever, however you say it. So I very much felt like that chapter was closed. So it also
Mm-hmm.
made sense, like, okay, if that is closed, and there is somewhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
And London right now, and this exploration of what I might do here and what might be for me here, is what's happening right now. And I don't know how long that will last. And, I don't, I myself haven't put a timeline on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I mentioned, I think earlier, I was like, I don't feel like anything in the US is calling me back right now, or,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
no one's asked me to come back. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I live now. And so I'm just seeing it through. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and there's just different things with, people having open arms to me, and, the amount of
Mm-hmm.
people who are willing to say yes, or even that, my immigration process was fairly smooth once I figured it out. Like, I feel like the doors are open for me to be here for this
Mm-hmm.
season. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel confident that more answers will come.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much depth in that. And I absolutely like, and I'm going to say a word that you said earlier, resonate, which to me, when you go through life and you can tell like that something is stirring something in you, it's such
Mm-hmm.
a um exciting way to live. It's such a rewarding
Yeah.
way to live when you um are living in a way where you're practicing having quieted yourself, right? You're listening to like a voice that comes up inside you that, and people have different words for it, right? Whether that's, prayer or
Right.
meditation or
Mm-hmm.
contemplation, um or whether somebody thinks it's, labels it God or the universe, or that there's um I resonate so much with that. And the more that I lean into that way of living, which is a more intuitive space, which is a more, it's really, I'll do it. I'm like, should I swear? Yeah, that's just what's coming. It's really fucking scary um
Mm.
way to live, because you're like, this is all I've ever known. I'm in LA, but you're like,
Yeah.
there's this thing inside me and this idea, and it just keeps coming back. And it's just, so what are you going to do with it? Are you just going to stuff it down? Right. Because I think that's how a lot of
Right.
people live. Are you going to
Right.
honor that there's like a truth and there's something in that to explore? And in the exploration, you described it as miracles, and that's just like, and
Mm.
like the joy. And then there's that like reciprocity, right? As you go out into the world, and right, so somebody might say it's like a karma, right? So if you go out with this openness and treating people with kindness, that what's coming back is, you share love with people, like they're more
Yeah.
likely, they're going to find it easier to
Yes.
demonstrate, their love for you. And there's like so
Right.
much like serendipity, right? Where you didn't even do anything for this person. So it's not like you were in a relationship to them, but there is, sometimes like in Christian world, we'll say like a God economy, right? Like of how
Mm.
God moves, that it's not. And so when you start making decisions based on that versus what makes financial sense, like what makes like where your
Right.
friends live, where does your family live. But if you start honoring that, then there starts to be, yeah, like this synergy, and it's so exciting. And I love that you shared all that. That's what I want to say.
Thank
And I
you.
could go on forever and ever. And that's always my struggle, is to try to
You're
keep
like,
it
huh?
keep it
You're like,
tight. So
where's the period? No,
this
that
is,
was pretty
yeah, this
tight.
is my, yeah, this is my sweet spot. So my passion, right, comes out. So question 2, what do you think it means to live your healthiest life, Stacey?
Good question.
Mm.
I would say two things. I mean, a lot of things within these two umbrellas, right? The first one is
Mhm.
pursuing joy and
Mm,
whatever that may look like for you. And then also just incorporating healthy habits into your life that help you with your goals or get to the lifestyle that you want to have. So, for instance, in my life, pursuing joy looks like taking dance classes, spending time
mm-hmm,
with friends. I love musicals. I love live music. I love theater. I
mm-hmm,
love movies. So I go to shows and see things all the time.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And if I can share those with friends, that's great. I love to go on long walks. I love to walk in parks. Those things bring me joy. And I make it a point to do them. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I have to work so hard or for so long until I can do X. No, I'm regularly pursuing joy.
yeah,
And it's something
yeah,
that I'm always, craving and looking forward to. And then there's, just those habits that I think help keep us healthy. And those
mm-hmm,
things, for me could be, starting every morning with a daily devotional,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
praying. I
mm-hmm,
also do 3 pages. I do morning pages, which is 3 pages of free writing every morning. I've been doing
mm-hmm,
that for the last
mm-hmm,
few years. It's been a game changer.
mm-hmm. Like
I
Artist
try,
Way, or does that come
yes,
from somewhere else?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
And then, drinking a lot of water, getting
mm-hmm,
10,000 steps a day or a dedicated workout.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, yeah, I think, it's just those small habits that people like to do to get their day started right,
mm-hmm,
to make sure that they're always aware of what's happening, and I think even the
mm-hmm,
morning pages practice helps with all of that
mm-hmm,
because you're constantly
mm-hmm,
checking in with like, where am I at? What am I thinking about? What do I need? As a time, a few months ago, I was working a lot of days and a lot of nights, and it was just getting really hectic. And at some point, I was like, you know what? I actually need a massage, because I feel like I'm
mm-hmm,
carrying stuff in my body
mm-hmm,
and just
yeah,
being aware that that's happening. So,
mm-hmm,
constantly
mm-hmm,
checking in and being aware of what you
mm-hmm,
might need either in the short term or the long term, right? Do I need a
mm-hmm,
massage? Do I need to move from my city? Do I need to move from this job? Do I need to
mm-hmm,
move from this relationship? Whatever it might be for
mm-hmm,
the person. But
mm-hmm,
I think just pursuing joy and living in a consistent state of self-awareness, and
mm-hmm,
not in like this crazy deep way, but just like, am I aware of what's going on? I'm feeling this
mm-hmm,
way, that way, or maybe I'm feeling all of those things and I can still move forward, or,
mm-hmm,
know
mm-hmm,
what course of action I need to take.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, yeah, that's your executive capacity is coming across, right? You just communicated so much there, like so efficiently. And
Yay! I'm good at my job. Yay.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's right. Well, so in case anybody listens, and they'll reach out to be like, we need, yeah. We'll see. We'll see if anything happens from the viewership. Yeah, I mean, what else to say? I think, you said it's not deep, and I feel, I guess I'm just going to say this because that's what's coming up is, and you mentioned before we got on, right? Like talking about depth and kind of downplaying your depth. And I want to say like, this is deep because the more like, and I love thinking, I love, that's kind of like one of my passions, just thinking about the world and then like
Yeah.
making connections and it comes together. But a lot of what comes out of that is really, it's the simple things, right?
Mm,
Truth is actually quite simple, but there's nuance, right? So there's wisdom to it. It's not black. Truth is not like black and white, but it's usually comes down to being like it's pretty simple. Like, right, to live a good life, you could probably be kind, right? Like that's like can
mhm.
be a like profound guiding principle. So yeah, there's a lot of like basic things here. I journaled today because like I said, I'm coming out of a season of overwhelm and there's been a lot of transition in my life. And so
Right.
what has really helped me and ground me is just very fundamental things. So literally I journaled like so I did that, right? So I took morning time, I sat for 20 minutes this morning
Hmm.
like in silence and then I did some journaling. So kind of my uh my version of a morning page, just like whatever comes out. And one of the things I landed on is just I think about my summer, my time that I'm going to have now is, and that just was naturally, right? I didn't have to think like, oh, what am I going to do this summer? It's just
It
like,
just came up.
what's the invitation? And it was just the basics. So it was like a lot of things you said of
Mm,
like drink water, move, pursue beauty, like all these kind of things that they're so basic, but there's such a deep to that. There's like that mystery that like happens when we
hmm.
do these very basic things. And as somebody that thinks about physical health, well, that's like so what so much my training is, and increasingly I just think of how that's integrated with all the different levels: spiritual domain,
Hmm.
mental, emotional well-being, like communal, societal health, like. But if we think just like molecules in our body and things like that,
Hmm.
we can't disregard that, right? And live healthily, right? So we need the movement. But if you
Hmm.
can do something that's movement, but is also really fun, like dancing,
Right.
like that's incredible, right? So these very basic things are incredibly deep. They're incredibly profound. And yeah, dance is one of those things. Is that something you've done recently? Like for me, I've kind of come back to dancing. I never did
Hmm.
it in any kind of organized way
Hmm.
previously, other than like in college. Swing dancing was really big. I had
Oh,
made a resurgent,
fun.
which was a lot of fun. And so there was like a time in college, at least one semester long, that maybe a year or 6 months where, yeah, like every Wednesday he'd go to JT Whitney's and they would have a little primer if anybody wanted, like, here's some moves, and then it was just kind
Uh-huh.
of like a free for all
Uh-huh.
dancing, which is kind of rare in the US. I feel like that
Yeah, there's not
it's,
all the
there's kind of
time.
like little niches of that. Like culturally, we're not like a big dancing
You're right.
society. And that
Hmm.
felt really good. And then I had friends at the time that would do that swing dance. And then we'd also just like have dance parties where we didn't have like, you just like push the furniture out of the living room, like against the walls, and then just like had people over. But then I went
Hmm.
through, because college is about, yeah, 20 plus years for me as well,
Hmm.
right? That I went through a big gap of not really dancing. And then I started just kind of like solo dancing, and I'll post some, I know you'll
I
post some
know.
videos and I'll do some.
I've
Yeah.
seen your dance videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause
Yeah.
right. Cause I think there's like a synergy, right? Of where we realize that we influence other people, right? So we can dance by
Yes.
ourselves and that's wonderful. But then I know that there's other people out there that need to dance, right? And so if I
Yes.
can get like a little prompt, so it's not like a showy, like, look at my moves, because I'm not, you're doing like some choreographed dance classes and things. And
Hmm.
but I've just started to participate in some like West African dance class or a thing that's
Ooh,
called
that's
Dance
fun.
Church here. So it's just like accessible movement. And there's so much though that happens in the movement. I'd love to hear anything you want to share about your relationship to
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I mean, it's so much fun. I mean, I danced a little bit growing up, and then I got into it more during college. We had this annual dance show at my school, and I also learned to dance salsa in
Mm-hmm.
college, which was really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've also mostly been a hip hop dancer, and in my 20s, I spent a lot of time dancing and, teaching dance, performing a little bit more. There was a time when I thought that I might want to like, go hard and like really be like in the studio
Oh,
and like
yeah.
maybe pursue it
Yeah.
professionally and maybe like audition or something. But I just, I personally never really felt like I was really there. And
Hmm.
I was never really at that level. And I also just really enjoyed it. And I think also when you're in your 20s, you're just like, man, like it is a bit of a scene, like
Hmm.
everybody's dressed really cool. And like, I don't
Hmm.
really know how to dress. I'm just trying to learn this, but I
Hmm.
can't learn it because there's 75 people in the class. And like most of the three front rows are like middle schoolers. And like I don't know if this
Yeah,
is what I
yeah.
need to be doing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you know even at our church years ago, we had like a dance
That's
ministry,
right.
and I was
That's
able to
right.
dance with them
Hmm.
and teach classes through that. So there were other ways where I found that I could enjoy it. And then there was also like a big gap where I wasn't really dancing a bunch. And then I think like in my 30s I started to go out dancing a little bit more, just to like,
Hmm.
Friday, Saturday nights with some girlfriends. Had a lot of good times just dancing. And then
Yeah, yeah.
a few years ago, I just found this dance studio near me that just had really great teachers and great classes. And it was all like, honestly, it was mostly women like 30s and up, 30s, 40s,
Hmm.
50s,
Hmm.
60s even. And
Cool.
it was just all about the fun and all about the community. And yeah,
Hmm.
we did perform, we did have a good time, but it wasn't competitive in any way. It was about the joy.
Yeah.
And I really just leaned into that community and danced with them
Hmm.
for years, and danced with them honestly through the pandemic.
Yeah,
And, even coming to
yeah.
London, I've been looking to take classes out here, and I found a couple studios. And for me, it's like, I'm in my early 40s now. I'm like, I still look young. Everyone there is like
Mm-hmm.
super young, and
Hmm.
they're still on
Hmm.
that cool tip. And I don't know if they have aspirations to like be in a video or whatever. But for me, I'm just like, listen, this is fun. I love
Yeah.
this music.
Yeah.
I'm not like, for me, it feels like a victory to like get the choreography.
Yeah.
If it's good, that's secondary. But
Yeah.
like I'm out here trying, and even like I'm still new in this country, and like I'm loving being here. And again, like I do feel called here, but there's still a lot in my life that is free flowing. And there is
Hmm.
something to going to a dance class and completing it and feeling
Mm.
like, okay, that was hard. I only got
Mm.
like 90% of it,
Yeah.
but like I did it and it
Yeah.
was fun. And
Yeah.
that to me feels like a victory to celebrate. And
Yeah.
and so I do post the videos mostly because it's not that I'm a content creator, but it's a hot
Hmm.
content on my social media. My
Yeah,
friends
yeah,
really like
yeah.
my dance videos for some reason. And it's so funny to me because it's like I feel like I'm getting cheered on for doing like the absolute bare minimum. I was like, you guys don't know, like the people who were in this class, they did it like 5 million times better than this. But thank you. But
Uh-huh.
again, to your point, it's like you do it to encourage other people, because there's so many people that will reach out to me and be like, I could never, or
Hmm.
I want to go,
Yeah.
I want to take a dance class. And I'm
Yeah.
like, trust
Do
me, you can take a dance
it.
class. Just
Yes.
do it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so fun. Like no one wants to
Yeah.
take like
Yeah.
CrossFit or HIIT classes. Like go to dance class. Like don't do like the boring workout. Do the fun workout.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think yeah. So yeah, the physical therapist in me is always just trying to, because so much like suffering in the world, and it's not just limited to physical therapy, but it's just preventable. And like one of the biggest ways that people get injured is just too much too fast. And so if you can have like a baseline
Mm,
of movement, then your body is just more versatile. And one of the things, so a couple of things I guess about dancing. So just explore movement, like, so whatever it is. So if dancing isn't your thing, right, it's like do whatever, but dancing is fun.
yeah.
It does require that you let go of what do I look like to other people, right? Which is
Right.
a
You're right.
wonderful invitation, just to be like, I'm going to do this movement, whether it's spontaneously generated or somebody's telling me this is what
Uh-huh.
we do it on this downbeat, we do the 5 6, like like however it's coming about, it's fun. And most things, and again, there's like the barriers of what do other people think, whether you're making music with somebody or whether you're, have a screenplay that's now becoming, you have actors, like the collaboration makes it even that much more fun. But the important thing is like just move, right? Move your body.
Yeah.
Um, and make it fun. And if you can do
Yeah.
those things, you will be healthier. I'm probably less
Yes.
likely to see you in my physical therapy practice, provided
Yeah.
that what you do is incremental. So for the people wanting to get into it, it's like, you don't have to go to a choreographed dance class that's like
Yeah.
with like professional aspiring dancers. Like, yeah, just like in the same way, like take the long perspective, just like how you got to your executive consulting advocacy work, that you had to do like small little things. So it can just be like put a little song on, and just move, tap your toe, do like
Yes.
yeah, because we do hold tension. You talked about that even right with the massage, right? So there is like that
Yeah.
kind of freeing type thing. So my most recent is I've taken to just dancing spontaneously in public spaces, not like a flash mob, right? It's not like,
Uh-huh.
but it's just like, yep, I'm gonna do, and my partner is a willing partner with that, and so we just have a good time. But so we definitely made a little bit of a scene at the grocery store recently, but it was a whole lot of fun to go grocery shopping because the grocery cart was involved, and just yeah, it was a great time.
Oh, that sounds really fun, actually.
Yeah, so if you want, yeah, so I actually aspire to like try to do some choreographed and like hip hop sounds, like just really fun. I got to
Mhm.
loosen up my hips a little bit. That's part of like the West African dance class is teaching me.
Right.
Yeah, like, well, okay, I need to work on that a little bit.
Yeah, and you just keep going.
Just keep going.
You
It's
just
just
keep
fun.
going and
It's
it'll get
just fun. Yeah.
easier, and it's
Yeah.
just a good time. It's a good time.
It's just a good time. Absolutely. Amen.
Mhm.
Amen.
Joy, joy,
Tell
pursuing
me,
joy.
joy, pursuing joy. Yes, have fun with it.
Yes.
Um, and obviously we could go through so many of these things because there is so much depth to explore in those things. But pursuing joy, incorporating healthy habits. Yeah, those are, yep, top-notch advice right
Mm.
there. Let's take it kind of current. Like, what are you currently learning about living your healthiest life?
Good question. I think I am learning how to deal with multiple emotions and feelings and realities at the
Mm,
same time.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Tell me.
And, when it comes to health, for example, so one of the things that has been challenging about being in a new place is just the transition and the ups and downs and the things that come up that you have to deal with, the questions you have to ask yourself, the things you need to face that you haven't before. And
Yes.
sometimes those things make you feel uneasy. And in the past, I have gone to what I think are unhealthy eating habits. And,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times it's candy. I'm still very much like a child when it comes to that
Sweet
stuff.
tooth.
Yeah, I have
Mm-hmm.
a sweet tooth. I go to
Mm-hmm.
these things and,
Mm-hmm.
they're, while they're helpful in the moment, they're not healthy in the longer term in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, like my waistline. And
Mm-hmm.
so, uh, I think because of those habits, I have put on, more weight than I would like to have. And I've been struggling with my weight, I would say pretty regularly, like for like the last several years. So it's been one of those
Mm-hmm.
things. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's not one
Mm-hmm.
of those major occupiers of my mind, but it's
Mm-hmm.
something that is there. And, I have a desire
Mm-hmm.
to fit all the clothes in my closet. So,
Mm-hmm.
so there's this thing of like, okay, my weight, how I feel in my clothes, I am dissatisfied with.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that when I looked in the mirror, I felt happier about what I saw. But with
Mm-hmm.
that, I
Mm-hmm.
will also continue to have fun
Mm-hmm.
at dance class. And I will also
Yes.
continue to enjoy these workouts. And I will also look my best when I go out and still
Mm-hmm.
think that I have something to offer with this outfit choice or whatever it is. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to
Yep.
still choose to feel confident and to put my best foot forward, even though I don't feel necessarily great in this way. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
both things are true. Like I'm not going to let
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
part of it get me
Mm-hmm.
down, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think for me, that one in particular is something where it's like, okay, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
also asking myself, why do I need those things that I gravitate
Yes.
toward when I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable, right? I'm also
Yeah.
trying to break
Yep.
those habits of, do I
Yep.
really need that now when maybe I could
Yeah.
just drink some water, or maybe instead of stopping at the store, I just walk home? Like, can I deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those things where just handling the various emotions of being in this new place and building a new
Mm-hmm.
life,
Yep.
I've been able to live with them, but I still do cope in ways that I feel are not as healthy
Mm-hmm.
as they could be. And
Yep.
so every
Yep.
day
Yep.
working to get better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's oh yeah, lots of things pinging in my brain with that. Um and I love your vulnerability with being willing to discuss that. And because the thing is that everybody has their things or thing, right? That's kind of like the
Right.
go-to kind of comfort. Like things are not
Yes.
going well. Like, and so what are coping strategies? How do we handle
Yeah.
stress? What are the triggers? Because maybe work stress is fine, but maybe it's relational stress but you actually aren't going to know those things until you do the exploration. That's what I hear with what I'm hearing is that there's a curiosity, like there's an observation,
Yes.
right? And part of that is
Right.
just like, part of it's like, I think I'm using this expression, right? Calling a spade, right? Just saying like,
Yeah.
this is reality, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think this is what you're saying, that there can be an alternate reality, right? So but okay, where am I at right now? Like baseline.
Yeah.
And I deal with this a lot with my patients because, and increasingly I spend a lot where they're kind of like, this feels like therapy. And obviously I'm a therapist, but they don't mean physical therapist, because I wasn't just saying like, okay, do 10, 3 sets of 10 of those,
Mm-hmm.
or like make sure you're moving this way, not that way. We're actually talking about behavior, because again, a lot of what people get injured by is their behavior or lack is their behavior. So movement,
Mm-hmm.
lack of movement, what they're choosing to
Mm-hmm.
do, every now and then somebody gets hit by a car, right? And so you're just like, well, that's a bummer. We have to deal with it. But there's like the underlying, why do you choose to work out too hard? Why
Right.
don't you exercise regularly? Like, why, and it takes time, and there's not really a lot of space or guides where people are, it takes a lot of work and I think our society doesn't necessarily push us to that. I think there's like avenues, and increasingly we're finding this. So I really appreciate, I say all that to say there's like a broader wisdom in what you're modeling
Mm.
of just I'm just going to, like, first step is just acknowledge what's happening, right?
Yeah.
This is what it is. Because if we're in denial, right,
That's right.
nothing's going to happen, right? So just
Right.
acknowledging what things are, and then it can be like, this is a behavior that I think is really great. I want to reinforce this. I want to turn that dial up and really make this a habit and celebrate it when I do it. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
other times where there's other, choices we make that, yeah, has that temporary relief. But then what does future self feel like that? So
Exactly.
that's the, like, a language I've used a lot recently, is just like, what is future Elle gonna feel like? So whether it's
Yeah.
like I stay up and I don't go to bed, or on time, what is future Elle gonna feel like? If I
Yeah.
don't drink the water today, what is
Yeah.
future Elle gonna feel like? So one thing I stopped in the last few years was like a gift of the pandemic, was just alcohol. I just don't drink. And I was never a big drinker. I never was
Yeah.
prone to like getting drunk. But honestly, like, I wouldn't feel like the best the next day. I'm like a sensitive person. My body is
Mm-hmm.
I'm sensitive in a lot of ways, and that
Mm-hmm.
includes my body. And I just started to realize, like, I like waking up and feeling good, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
part of me. And then, well, this behavior, if I'm drinking socially, if I have a gin and tonic or two, like maybe if I'm not properly hydrated and if I didn't, whatever, if I didn't eat enough food at the time or whatever, kind of stressed, I
Mm-hmm.
might not wake up feeling that great the next day. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was like, pause, okay, and then I could just be like, oh, okay, that made it much easier to think, okay, well, what about future Elle? And that's like, and I'm giving a much lighter example than even you're doing. So I really appreciate your vulnerability in that. But I think that offers a lot to the listeners about, because I don't think, and I don't hear you saying like eating sweets is bad. I think you're
Right.
saying
The way in which I
whatever
do
the
it.
amount or
Yeah.
the frequency
Yeah.
is. Like, do I like the results? No. Okay, I'm not able yet to adequately change the behavior, and people get really stuck there, right? And there can be a lot
Yeah.
of shame, a lot of beating yourself up for like, why can't I do this thing, versus there's a reason I do this. There's something in me that needs to be nurtured. There's something that needs kindness and softness. But until we can identify whatever that thing is, we can't care to it. We can't pick a better alternative because it needs care. So,
Yeah.
like, you have to be curious about it to know what it is. There's so many steps in the process. Like, you have
Right.
to, like, the acknowledging, then the curiosity, and then is that it? Is that it? Is that it? And then you have to start to change behaviors. Like, once you have the knowledge, oh, this is my trigger, this is what's happening. Okay, instead I'm gonna do some breathing. Okay, instead, actually, if I exercise instead, that will
Mm-hmm.
discharge this stress. Or I need a nap, or I need to call a friend, or right,
Mm-hmm.
you listed
Right.
so many like healthy things previously, but it's like, if in that moment we don't realize what's happening,
That's right.
like me last week getting overwhelmed, I'm trying to think if I can think of like a similarly vulnerable example. Like last week I was struggling with being overwhelmed, um and that is, I can do like emotional eating with that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can, like, I think when I was like 20s, I had disorder, nothing that was diagnosed, but I had kind of bulimic tendencies
Mm.
towards, and I probably would have thrown up if I could, but I like the time I tried that didn't work really well. So it's more like exercise based, right? Of
Okay.
like, here's like a pint of ice cream, and a lot of it is, I think, more probably triggered for me with, I'm just like really fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's something emotionally going on that probably ties into my sense of worth, and I just need to be, um and sweets are, it can be a good one for me too. I've realized recently, like, oh, some of the things that are my favorites, it's like they're childhood favorites. I think there's like that,
Yes.
there's like a subconscious thing that is taking me to a safe place in my childhood. Like I
Yes.
spent time in Germany. So like
Mm-hmm.
I have like a very, don't just give me these American crappy gummy bears. Like I need the Haribo, right? Because they're, they're from Germany. And why
They're
is that?
delicious.
And I've just always been like, well, they're superior. But it's like links me to when I was two
That
years
time.
old, 3 years old, 4 years old, like probably with the like these positive
Thoughts and
experiences. And so
feelings.
I
Uh-huh.
can, yeah, and I get a bag of those, and it's very hard for me just to be like, I don't know what
Oh,
an
just a
appropriate amount
couple.
is. I don't believe in that, but like I'll be like,
Yeah.
and I don't even, and I can eat a whole bag in one sitting. I don't necessarily feel bad about it, but I do learn increasingly that if I eat a whole bag and then I'm like, ooh, I don't feel really good, then I should think back and say, oh, you just ate a whole bag of those. Okay, then the next time I can think, okay, you want some, great. Well, why do you want it? Is it because you're actually craving it? Or is there like a none, like why is the craving there? Because it's
That's
like
right.
we have taste buds, they should be enjoyed and explored, and movement, right? Like
Yeah.
dancing, sexuality, right? Like our body is meant to be, like, we're meant to experience pleasure, so we shouldn't label things as bad. It's kind of just like it's our relationship to things. So we do this, what's the result? We do this, what's the
That's right.
result? And do we like the result? Like, and then when we can, but we have to be curious about like that interplay. So I really, really appreciate you being willing to share like what
Yeah.
you're learning about right now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, appreciate you. Yeah, just that you understand it so well because it is it is a journey.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And you are beautiful. So I'm glad that you're,
Oh, thank
yeah.
you,
Yeah. So yes, yes. You always have, steezy, right? Do you style with ease? Let's take it home with our last question. So what is something that you wish more people knew about living their healthiest life?
Oh, great question. What do I wish some people knew? I don't know. This just came at the top of my head, and what's coming out is it's easy. It could be easy, right? And it's just, if we go back to my original answer, pursuing joy, what are those things? You look back
Mm-hmm.
to, we brought up the artist way, and we mentioned these nostalgic things from childhood. One thing that the artist way pushes you to do is to think back to the things you enjoyed when you were young. What were those
Yes. Right.
activities?
Yes. Yeah.
Or, even now, it's like, what are
Mm-hmm.
those things that we gravitate toward? What do we just love? Music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and to just find time to tap into those things in big or small ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing that we've been talking about is that, sometimes it is simple, sometimes it is small. And tapping into that, I think, can be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself permission. And it's not something that we have to earn or fit in our schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it can just be a part of our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
but I think it might start with just taking a little bit of time away to think about what those things are for you if
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't feel tapped into them, because some
Mm-hmm.
people are
Mm-hmm.
maybe too busy or are looking after other people or just have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. They might
Mm-hmm.
not have given themselves room or permission to be able to think about what those things are. But I think if you can take a little bit of time and just say, no, I can enjoy this thing, and or I can't
Mm-hmm.
incorporate this habit or whatever, I think that gets you a step closer to living a healthier life. So I think it's just tapping into what you are, what you already gravitate toward.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great advice, just like the nugget that it is. And it's great just because in my experience of the world, I think people really struggle to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the world is in deficit because of that. I think there's a lot more of people just being like so serious, and in the being so serious, we're easily offended, and then in being easily offended, it's not us, it's them versus us. And I think like things as simple as just like a practice of joy, of laughter, really helps you navigate the hard times.
Yeah.
And life is hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
um I set a goal. I can't remember if I've mentioned it yet on the podcast, but I set a goal last year of uh developing more smile lines. I don't see any smile, like you have a very smooth
Do
complexion. And yes, you
I?
do that. Yeah, that youthful face. But I was just like, I want there to be like signs, as I start, as my skin starts to show what I do a lot, I want it
Yeah.
to reveal that it looks like she's, smiled a lot.
Smiling
And
and
that's a
laughing a
bit
lot.
of a like
Mm-hmm.
a and that's a bit of like a pivot for me. And not that I didn't laugh, but I can, yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. And having stated that intention has resulted in, and again, you could, can you say I manifested it? Can you say it was a prayer? But me doing that has resulted in like I have a partner that aligns with that. I was like, I want to go see comedy. I'm doing more, and it's fun. I went and saw a musical just this week, the Obama musical. If you're ever back
Oh,
in LA and Hollywood, it was very funny and people were very talented. Yeah, just about the presidency of like a
how
little bit of leading up. So
fun.
about Michelle and Barack and there
I love it.
it was a lot of fun. And and just like the dance parties in the grocery store and just like that
Yes,
levity of
yes,
just yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. And the thing is, the more I do it, the more, and this is true, just even eye contact or something simple like that, the more I put that out in the world, and if I'll just hold somebody's gaze, and maybe I'm not even full on smiling, but maybe I'm not frowning, maybe I'm just, a little bit more upturned, or they can see it in my eyes. I just find that people really do want to reciprocate that. There's like a building, like
yeah.
a crescendo of like a positive energy, even with people that I'm just, they're walking their dog, I'm walking my dog, they're in the checkout line, they're in the, um, it's very generative, I find.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, joy is contagious.
Joy is contagious. Yeah. So, and you brought us back to that. So, and I love the child, like the tip to bringing it back to the artist way of, and I even see like biblical ties in there, right? Like in terms of like to lead a deeply spiritual life, Jesus said is you need to have the faith of a child, right? And
Yeah, yes,
children don't have like this their rational mind is not developed. They're not involved in like all these theological debates, or it's just
yeah,
very simple. And Jesus, the founder of, well, who the Christian faith is based on, right, is that was like a huge insight of his. You just need to have the faith of a child. And when you think of a child, yeah, it's just so much, there's so much play and joy
yeah,
and sincerity. And it's kind of this unfettered, we kind of learn as we get older to be more concerned about what
yeah,
other people are thinking. Um,
yeah.
but that's not our natural like childhood. You just kind of like you just go about and you make friends at the
Yeah,
playground,
you're you're so right. And you don't have baggage. And
yeah.
well, I mean, obviously we know some kids do go through hard times, but it's like you don't
Mm-hmm,
have the
mm-hmm.
baggage that adults do. But also, oh gosh, what was the point I was just gonna make? You know that you're taken care of.
Yeah,
You know that you're looked after, that you're
yeah,
provided
yeah.
for, right? And I
Mm-hmm,
think that as adults we start losing sense of that, and part of it is that we do have more responsibility. But
mm-hmm,
one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot too is like God says he's here to take care of all of our needs, and
mm-hmm,
what is it like
mm-hmm,
living as a child that is just assured that my parent, has got me, is
yeah,
looking after me. And
yeah.
yeah, I think there is something. Yeah, I've been kind of meditating on childhood and
Mm,
feeling like an adult versus not for quite a while.
mm-hmm,
And it's just interesting that maybe this struggle or aspiration to feel more adult just
mm-hmm.
doesn't need to happen.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think about that.
I
Like,
don't need to feel more adult.
yes, and I clearly am actively exploring that, right? Dancing around the grocery store or
Yeah,
right, to just like somebody could look at, because in my head I'm like, well, the person can think like, oh, they're like I'm mentally off or like
sure.
I'm intoxicated or something like that, because adults don't behave that way. And
Right.
it's kind of like, why? Like why can't we? I wasn't knocking things off the shelf. I wasn't
Right.
impeding anybody's. There was
Not
a
being
good
disruptive.
song. There was a good song on, and why not just, just enjoy that? And can we even like rewrite that a little bit? So I really appreciate that. I think that's a great tip to do, and then like a pathway for people to pursue that. So I too have done the artist way, and have found it a big thing for me that came out of that was it maybe helped my journaling regularly, because I did it for like the 3 months, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
prescribed, and then you can kind of
Yeah.
keep going it as a
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more, I don't do the literal 3 pages every time. I'll do just
Sure.
kind of whatever, but journaling, it really helped me know that journaling is really helpful for me. But the dates, like you're supposed to, I don't remember what
The
interval it
artist
was.
dates. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think weekly. Yeah.
yeah,
Weekly is
and you
what they
kind of
ask you.
mentioned, yeah, you mentioned that like way back with your kind of pursuing joy. You had like those things just right there of like knowing the things that you enjoy and going to it. And that was like kind of the first concept for me of like, oh, not only can I go do something by myself, but I kind of need to do these things. So I'm going to
Right.
go to the museum by myself. And
Yeah.
will I go to a museum? Or sorry, I meant to say movie. Will I go to a museum by myself or go to the park? This last summer for me was a really big, will I go out to eat by myself, and not like a breakfast or lunch, which feels safer, but like a dinner. Like, will I
Okay.
go out to dinner?
Dinner.
And I did it for a week. I was in Latin America and I did it for like
Oh,
a
yeah.
week straight. And it got easier over the week. Right.
Yeah.
And, the first time I went and I made sure I had things around me. I brought like a
Sure.
book
Sure.
and,
Yeah.
and, oh, I'm going to watercolor here, and, but that idea of like learning how to date ourselves, which a child doesn't have to think about it.
Yeah. You're
I
right.
don't think, I guess I'm not like a child
No, because they can't
psychologist.
go
I think
anywhere
it,
by themselves. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
they want to play, and they know, and those thoughts just kind of come naturally, right, to a child. So that pathway. So I appreciate you giving people a resource, and I would double down on that with the artist way of being like a really helpful way um to, and I don't think in the title, right, is for artists.
It's for
I think
everyone.
we both would all agree that we're all creative, and
Yes.
we are all um and because of that, we're artists, and our artistry can look very different, right? Whether it's in the
That's
corporate
right.
world, or whether we're teaching, or whether it's in our home and with families and relationships, and even with any one person. Like, you've already shared just a smattering of creativity and how you integrate it into your life. So I would double down on that with Artist Way as a way for somebody that wants to learn um, just how to live a more
Mhm.
integrated way. I think that's another way I would frame it, because I think if you're connected to your child and you're thinking creatively, and it helps you, just like, right, that journaling is like, it's like a brain dump, right? Just like
Yes,
whatever's
that's
in
right.
there, and then
That's
it
right.
kind of allows you to, it takes off some of those layers of the stress and the
That's right.
things that
That's right.
happen in our adult life that we can kind of connect to
Right.
playfulness, or even coming back to that calling, or like what are the, it quiets like the buzz, or the ringing that's in our ears maybe, and kind of gets us to like a more quiet place where we can hear those whispers of what we're kind of meant to do, which is what movies like point to, right? Like
Right.
the hero's journey of like, what's your calling, what's yours to um there's heroes and heroines, so I think hopefully we'll get more heroines story
Yeah.
of like kind of what the female energy has to bring to the world. So Stacey, I'm so grateful for the time we got to spend together. Then
Me too.
the grin is gonna just persist
Oh.
once we get off the call. It's
Likewise.
so lovely to see your face. Thank you for spending the time with me and with us, with my listeners. Thank you so
Yes, my
much.
pleasure. It's been really great. Thank you so much. You're so insightful. I love the way you break things down and the way your mind works, and I really appreciate your feedback and the conversation.
Thank you so much to everybody. Thanks for listening, and may you always see the blessing. Thanks for listening to this episode of the LYHL podcast. If you liked what you heard, you can find me on Instagram at the Elle, as well as YouTube, the internet, www.theelburtrell.com. And that's about it. And back here for our next episode of the podcast. Subscribe and leave a nice review if you think it'll be helpful for other people. Only then. Thanks. May you see the blessing.